is an emergency project after the end of the northern conflict with TPLF. After presenting these two cases, I will forward lessons learned from these two projects regarding to parenting and childhood development, and I will forward my recommendation based on the lessons from the case. In preparing these cases, I use the project documents and project evaluation documents. As we know, previous or in traditional cultural level division, parenting activities are mostly the role of mothers, and to balance this gender disparity, more recently, before two decades, Ministry of Health have started a health extension program throughout the country, and recently the issue of early childhood development is getting attention of many stakeholders. And in 2023, a new childhood development education and education policy framework have been developed with the collaboration of many stakeholders like Minister of Education, Minister of Health, Minister of Social Affairs, and other ministers like Minister of Trade and Agriculture. When we see the status of the country in terms of the 5 nurturing care components of UNESCO, the first component in nurturing care is good health. In this component, under 5 mortality rate in the country is 49 per 1,000 live births, and health facilities in the country didn't meet the neonatal health care standards of World Health Organization, and as well as the standards of the country Ministry of Health. When we see the nutrition status, 20% of children under 5 are underweight, 37% are stunted, and 7% are wasted. 57% of caregivers can't provide nutritious food for their children because of lack of access for food supplies and inaccessibility of market. When we see the safety and security issue, as I have stated earlier, children are experiencing risk to their safety and security due to the conflict and shocks. And hearing the sound of bullets is becoming common for children in the country, with the presence of active conflict in most part of the country, including the northern Ethiopia, which currently I'm working in. When we see the learning opportunity for early childhood age children, only 44% of children which are eligible for pre-primary education are enrolled, which means that 66% of children are out of school. They didn't get the opportunity to learn in their early stage. The last point regarding to the nurturing care is responsive caregiving. Unfortunately, there is no legally recorded document that can indicate the extent of responsive caregiving in the country as to the research founded by the American Institute of Research in 2023. Having said this, regarding to the current status of the parenting situation in Ethiopia, let's proceed to my case studies for my presentation. As stated in my introductory session, 2 projects have been selected to be presented in this presentation: the Saving the Brains project and the Climate Emergency Response Mechanism project. When we see the case 1, which is Saving the Brains project, its objective was to develop brain, or to teach parents about brain development and bonding and how to meet their children's needs through play, or implementing learning through play. And the second component was empowering 2,500 parents with the knowledge on maternal, newborn, and child health. and the other segment is learning through play, which focus on upskilling 60 health workers in delivering learning through play and video program to support parents in the process of supporting their children, and to make parenting a shared responsibility of both the mothers and fathers. To achieve this objective, the focus of Save the Brain project was improving knowledge and skill on learning through play, and support them in utilizing learning through play calendar, which is a locally made calendar with local language of Oromo to use to support parents to play with their children in a planned way and to help their motor moral development of the children. And the second was providing audiovisual education, as you see on the picture, providing audiovisual education for parents in their community about early brain development was the other component, and participating every stakeholder regarding to early childhood care and education was the other focus area of the project in the process of implementation. The project have achieved that parental knowledge on early brain development improved from 47.94 to 99.4 because of this project intervention. The yellow color, which is the baseline data, and the green is the post-intervention assessment data. And child communication skill have been improved from 61.5 to 84.9%, and gross motor development of children improved from 56.8 to 68.2%. When we see the fine motor skill of children, 33.7, it was 33.7 before the intervention of the project, and after the project intervention, it improved to 46.2%. The personal social development skill improved from 57.1 to 74.4%, and the social emotional development of children improved from 51.9 to 83%. However, the physical development of the children remain unchanged when we compare to the data of the baseline assessment and the inline assessment. When we proceed to the second case, which is Play Matters emergency response mechanism, its objective is not working. Okay. Its objective was to increase access to quality education service by implementing learning through play in conflict-affected areas of North Wallo, of the two waradas of Obbo Town and Gdan district, and to create access to child-friendly wash service and safe hygiene for pre-primary and primary school children in their school, and to support children and caregivers' well-being. The last but not the least is that to support caregivers to access for mental health and psychosocial support service to recover from the war trauma, because the project intervention was a post-war period after the agreement between the federal government and the Tigray People Liberation Front. In post-war scenario, providing mental health and psychosocial support service for war-affected children and their parents was very vital. So the priority issue of the Play Matter emergency response project was child protection, and we have established around 17 community-based child protection structures to promote safety and well-being through supportive network, and we provide training for staffs and teachers on child protection, and government staffs were also trained in post-conflict scenario to support children in need. Finally, mental health and psychosocial support service was provided as case management and providing training for parents, caregivers, and other respective parties. And now, after the project intervention, parents and caregivers are capable to implement psychosocial support coping strategies, enhancing stress management, and to support for their children and emotional needs. And we introduce learning through play as a mechanism for teaching learning in post-war scenario. It facilitates learning as well as it helps children to recover from the war trauma easily. So having said this, our learning through play LHP initiative, having said it on the projects, what lessons can we learn from these projects, from the Saving Brains project and the Play Matter Emergency Response Mechanism project? The Saving Brains project is a developmental project which was implemented in Oromia region, and Play Matter project was implemented in Amhara region, and it is emergency response type of project. So from the two different cases, what lessons can we learn? So we can learn that learning through play initiative can emphasize parental role in childhood development to ensure holistic growth. When introduces learning through play in a family, parental involvement in helping their children to play and to develop their mental and psychological situation is very important. And parental training programs strengthens parents' ability to meet children need, fostering nurturing environment, and that supports the growth of children. And the other issue is that the collaboration between different sectors or multi-sectoral collaboration can create nurturing care, child care culture, and supporting child's growth and emphasizing community support parenting. When we see the situation in emergency, specialized intervention is needed in emergency cases. For example, providing training alone can't solve the problem of people affected by war. So with the discussion with the discussion with donors, we provide cash for children, and that helps them to cover what they need, because identifying each personalized need in intervention area may be difficult. So providing a very support for the whole community will not be the right way. So in emergency cases, we have to provide support, comprehensive support for children and caregivers in conflict-affected area. That highlights the resilience and informed and supported parenting, and it improves parenting situation. It needs a special intervention. What's wrong? The other lesson we have learned from these projects is that school feeding initiative is what we have implemented in Play Matters Emergency Response Mechanism project, which is emergency project. We were providing high energy biscuit for children, and this school feeding initiative improve attendance rates and even the nutritional status of children which are at pre-primary age, and it can influence parental engagement and support for childhood development. And in other point is that the wash issue, as we can understand that having access for clean water in conflict-affected area is not easy. So at least facilitating or providing proper water, sanitation, and hygiene facility in school, children will engage children and parents to focus on their hygiene practice, and it can promote the health and safety in not only in the school but also their home environment. And in the comprehensive support should be provided to children in need for development by providing physical, emotional, educational support, and emphasizing capable, well-supported parents. When we go to the recommendation based on these cases, Policymakers and influencers or advisors of policymakers should advocate for policies that support parental education, child development, and school feeding and community-based protection to enhance early childhood development. Because we understand that parental training, as stated earlier, parental training can have an influence on the learning and development efforts of children. The other is operational recommendation. We, the practitioners, should enhance the knowledge and skill of caregivers, parents, child protection staff, and government officers to open and a good nurturing care environment for children, and we have to provide applied materials for children in need at school or early childhood development centers we are operating in the area. For researchers, I would like to recommend to share successful outcomes and learning and enhance the replication of best practice. The best practice of a certain intervention in a certain country should be scale up and share to the other partners for implementation in other areas. So the success of children believe in Ethiopia should be shared with other areas. So in doing so, the role of researchers in disseminating knowledge is very important. And the other important research area will be exploring the long-term impact of parental education on child development, and it will be good to evaluate the effectiveness of community-based structures, as I have stated earlier. And this is all about my presentation. I hope I have saved 1 minute for question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ermiyasi. We do have a few minutes for questions. If you have a question for him, you can just put your hand up, and I think we'll be able to see that. Just go to, if you can take his slides away.
Yeah.
If you can do that.
I hope I can do that.
Is there any comment or question you want to make?
Andrew, can I ask a question regarding the
Yes.
the feeding program?
Yes.
Is it implemented right in the school? Like, do they cook it in the school? Do they deliver? Like, how does it work?
Okay. Shall I reply?
Yes.
The feeding program, yes.
Yeah, I understand that. We were providing high energy biscuits for children. It was not a comprehensive feeding program. We were providing supportive high energy biscuits. So we purchase directly from fabrics and we distribute to children at school.
How long are the children in school? Like, from what time to what time?
It's an international conference. Ethiopia and Canada.
What? Pardon? Give me pardon, please.
Sorry. What are the hours of the school? From what time to what time do the children go to school?
Okay. The children go to school from 8 a.m. to 12 a.m.
Well,
local time, Ethiopian time.
I see. So almost half a day.
Yeah, almost all pre-primary children were getting high energy biscuit at that time.
I just wanted to know what was your main challenge during that project?
Oh, the main challenge during that project was the need from the side of the community was higher than our capacity we can reach. We were supporting only 17 schools from 42 schools in our catchment areas. So the remaining schools were requesting for our support, and we can't address this. So inability to address the needs of our target population was major challenge for us.
And what was your mitigation strategy? Do you have any mitigation strategy?
We were requesting for the donor IRC, and then we prefer to focus on our project catchment area, and we were requesting for other projects to intervene, and finally other similar projects have engaged in that area, and currently we are implementing a new project, change project, that can address the nutrition problem of the community in the same area to address that gap. Currently, we are implementing a change project which can address the whole population of that area.
The
Yes,
there's one question that is on the chat box. Says, great work. Is there any reason that you could say was the cause for there being no difference in the physical status from the baseline?
Interesting. The reason for that was the Saving Brains project was providing trainings and other supports, but the project was not providing nutritious food or food aids. Therefore, we understand that providing training alone will not bring change on physical development of children. So providing food support for children is very important. That's the lesson we take from that.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much for the
Can I just
presentation.
add something, Andrew?
Yes,
Maya
go
here.
ahead quickly. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to say I was absolutely thrilled to listen to what was being done in Ethiopia. We are also working with Child Belief in India now. And it's very interesting that what we're entering into is a totally complete tribal area in Andhra Pradesh, where there has been no work at all done on any aspect of child development. So I just found your points very thing, and it is very interesting because we just getting into that project right now. And we really don't know, because the tribal children have never had anything at all. It's a whole area in Andhra Pradesh, and we're doing it with Child Belief in India. So just to say that it's very nice. The points, the way you have done your points would be something nice for us to look at too. And we are also going LTP.
Okay,
And
so
I would recommend
and we have
that.
it in that language. We have it in that language in Telugu. That's one of the Indian languages, and so we have a translation. But the tribal language and everything is different, so it's going to be a completely different way of viewing. Even the way they talk and what their needs for early childhood in the forest area would be, versus we're developing a child development center, but we're talking to the elders, and what is it that how do you want your children to grow up? It's not that you get them into the mainstream and into the schools, which would be done in the urban area. Just to share that with you, that's all.
Thank you, Maya. And it was my thought earlier that during the presentation that it would be good for you folks to get together. Maya's done this work now, led it for 25 years, and I think it would be a lot of benefit to both of you to get together. We need to move on to the next presentation. So thanks again very much for your presentation, and we wish you well in your work and your travels. And let's go back to Nasim, and she will introduce the next speakers. And if you just want to, if you can take your screen away, or take your presentation away from the screen. I'm not sure quite how that's done, but maybe Rabia can help with that too.
While they're doing this, Andrew, I can start introducing our...
I can't remove the slides, so anyone can help me, please.
You would have share screen or stop share screen icon at the bottom of the tray. So if you can see at the bottom line, stop sharing.
I hope it stopped now.
No, not yet.
Oh, I can't. So
okay.
Okay.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Nasim.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. So we now have a double act. So we've got two presenters who will be sharing some very great work that they've done in Pakistan. So we've got Dr. Ishrat Hussain. He's an associate professor at the University of Toronto. He's a senior scientist and he's the lead for mood disorder services, general adult psychiatry, and health systems at Center for Addiction and Mental Health. Dr. Hussain also holds a visiting academic post at the Institute of Psychiatry at King's College London. He established academic links with centers in Canada, UK, Africa, and South Asia. He has a strong interest in global mental health. He's been awarded numerous prestigious grants, and we really look forward to hearing from him. He will be joined by Afshan Qureshi, who is the Director of Community Development at Pakistan Institute of Living and Learning. She's a certified master trainer of Learning Through Play Plus. She has trained researchers in LTP nationally and internationally. She's also a trained qualitative researcher. She's an expert in bilingual translation and has translated several psychosocial intervention manuals and books in Urdu language. So welcome both Ishrat and Afshan.
Thanks. It's a pleasure to be here, Professor Chaudhary. Rabia, for some reason, my slides are not sharing from my end, so I might need you to help me
I can share.
and toggle through. So it's great to be here to speak about a journey that we have been on for, wow, coming on almost 10 years, looking at scalable interventions for addressing paternal depression and subsequent child socio-emotional development outcomes. This journey really started as a call from the community in Pakistan, where we were doing a lot of work with the Pakistan Institute of Living and Learning on maternal mental health, and working with colleagues in Canada, looked at a parenting program called Learning Through Play, integrated with CBT, cognitive behavior therapy skills, to address maternal depression. And at the time when we were doing these projects, we really had a call from the fathers in these families to have a resource that they could also use to address their mental health. So what we did was we started out on this journey, and I'm here to talk to you about a really exciting culmination to that. So next slide, please. So why is depression in fathers important? Well, it's a really understudied area, although a highly prevalent mental health condition. Nearly 1 in 10 men, both fathers and non-fathers, experience some form of depression or anxiety, but we know that less than half of them seek treatment, primarily because of stigma, what are considered gender norms that exist throughout various societies and cultures about what's sort of considered to be masculine and non-masculine. And so often men with depression go without accessing any form of treatment, which leads to quite pervasive symptoms and an impact on functioning. And for fathers, this can have a huge implication on families. We know that fathers with depression are more likely to engage in intimate partner violence. We know that the children of fathers with depression as well suffer in terms of their social emotional development. Next slide, please. With regards to the Pakistani context, there is even more urgency to address this issue. Pakistan is considered to be one of the riskiest places in the world to be born in. For every 100,000 babies that are born, 46 die before the end of their first month. The area is rife with various psychosocial, geopolitical stressors, and as a result, rates of depression are much higher in the general population. And in men, these rates have been reported to be as high as 42% of the population, which is just staggering. Many of these men, of course, are fathers, and we think that perhaps the impact on child development in this region, for example, the stat there showing that 37% of children grow up stunted, may relate to the high rates of depression in their parents. And so we sought out on this journey to try and address parental depression through this program of research. Next slide, please. I've spoken a little bit about why men's mental health is important. Although we know that rates of mental disorders are higher in women, it's men that are less likely to receive mental health assessment and care, and hence often go untreated. Next slide, please. And again, this often relates to stigma, which can be even more of an issue in patriarchal societies like Pakistan, where really the traditional gender norm is considered that the man is the main breadwinner of the family, is the main source of financial support, and as such is really expected to keep on going despite whatever stressors they may be facing. Next slide. And so I spoke about this journey of trying to address parental depression. We started off by looking at the Learning Through Play program, which is a parenting skills program that uses a pictorial calendar shown here in these images that really is based on play therapy. And we integrated this for fathers with the Thinking Healthy program, which is a CBT skills-based psychological intervention to try and address both parenting skills and mood and anxiety symptoms in fathers with depression. And around 10 years ago, we conducted a feasibility study in almost 20 fathers with depression, showing that the Learning Through Play plus combined with the CBT skills was deemed to be acceptable and feasible by these fathers. And in fact, our preliminary clinical effects showed that it led to a reduction in depressive symptoms and improvements in quality of life. We then extended this program into a cluster randomized control trial across the city of Karachi. This was funded by Grand Challenges Canada in a seed funding application that we made. And through this cluster trial, we were able to support 357 fathers and their children by delivering parenting skills and CBT. The results of that are about to be published soon, but I can say that we showed a reduction in depressive symptoms that was quite strong in the LTP group compared to those receiving standard care after the intervention, and it also was sustained for 2 months after the LTP program ended. We were also able to demonstrate that children of fathers that received LTP demonstrated better socio-emotional development than those of fathers that received standard care. So using this preliminary data, we went to Grand Challenges Canada and said, hey, look, we would like to scale this up really across a larger population. The initial cluster trial was only in 2 villages in Karachi. So what we were able to do is to get some funding to expand it across the entire population of almost 23 million people. And that's 18 towns within the city of Karachi, which is Pakistan's main financial capital. And through this study, we have been able to deliver LTP plus DADs to almost 3,000 fathers with depression, as well as including their partners, which is a real novelty of this particular study. Really what we're doing is a partner-inclusive approach to addressing parental mental health. And again, almost 3,000 mothers with depression were included in the intervention. A large part of what we were doing was capacity building. So really, training community health workers that are really the bedrock of community health in Pakistan in the LTP intervention as well. So really, being able to scale it up and implement this across the country. And I'm really excited to share some of our preliminary findings. This is really hot off the press. So you're lucky to be able to be here to hear some of this work. I think, as far as I'm aware, this is the largest study of any parental mental health intervention worldwide. You can see here that in terms of the baseline demographic characteristics, they were quite similar. Generally, fathers in their early 30s, not really having many years of education, only 4 years of education, so low literacy fathers and low income fathers, as well as demonstrated by the total household income. Most were in some form of employment. They were from a nuclear family system rather than the traditional joint family system that can be seen. It was actually a fair division in those that rented and owned their home. Next slide, please. And I want to spend just a few minutes talking about these initial preliminary clinical results, which again are really exciting. You can see here in the yellows that are marked, these are the things that we as clinical trialists really look for. That is the significance value, showing significant differences in each of our clinical measures between groups. So it's a busy slide and I'll walk you through it. In our intervention arm, we had significant improvements in our primary outcome, showing greater reductions in the Hamilton Depression Rating Scale, which is a commonly used a measure of depression severity in those fathers that received LTP DADs compared to those that did not. Improvements in anxiety symptoms, improvements in parenting stress and distress, as well as improvements in the parent-child interaction, which is so great to see that this intervention that can really lead to improvements in that relationship. Next slide, please. And then we go on, we looked at other parenting outcomes as well, like knowledge and attitudes of parenting, and there were significant improvements in that particular measure as well in the LTP DADS group. Significant improvements in quality of life measures as well, and improvements in relationships between parents as well, if you're looking at the dyadic adjustment scale. Next slide, please. And then, as I mentioned, we looked at various measures of quality of life. This is a hugely rich data set. I think it'll take us years to unpack in terms of all of the secondary measures and exploratory measures that we looked at, but lots of rich data showing that the LTP DADS intervention led to substantial improvements in fathers' mental health, quality of life, relationships, parenting skills as well. Next slide. We can go through this. This is, again, measures of functioning and quality of life. Next slide, please. What's really interesting was that we also looked at the home environment. So we looked at the home inventory, and we were also able to show demonstrated improvements, but these were not statistically significant on our initial analysis. Next slide. In terms of mothers, again, we were able to show some baseline characteristics here. We haven't analyzed the clinical data as yet, but interestingly, over half of the mothers had some form of depression. So whether that's mild all the way to severe. Next slide. So in terms of conclusions, our preliminary findings show that fathers receiving the LTP DADS intervention showed a significant reduction in depression and an improvement in mental health and well-being. This low-cost parenting program will help scale up the innovation across health services in Pakistan and hopefully other low-resource settings, including low and middle-income countries. We hope that this program is going to contribute towards the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which aims to promote health and well-being, inclusive and equitable quality education, and lifelong learning opportunities, as well as a commitment towards global partnerships and cooperations through our partnerships with those in other settings, including settings like Nigeria and Africa. With that, I'll hand it over to Afsha for her to go through the qualitative findings.
Thank you, Ishrat. Ishrat has taken us through the journey of the work we have done in this, and I'll take you to the qualitative work and the qualitative findings which we have done in this project. So can I have the next slide, Rabia, please? So our aim was to conduct process evaluation and identify challenges in transition to scale up the intervention across Karachi, which Ishrat has already told you Pakistan from the perspective of fathers, mothers, and the stakeholders. Our method was the participants, which were mostly fathers and the partners, researchers and community health workers who were involved in the intervention delivery, stakeholders, which were mostly clinicians, family members, community leaders, policymakers, etc. Next slide, please. Our sampling procedure was maximum variation sampling technique was ensured. Participants from different socioeconomic backgrounds, ages, and intervention time points were represented. Interviews were being conducted until the saturation points met. Next slide. Interview guides, semi-structured topic guides were developed, consulting the literature through previous findings with the help of research team under supervision. Topic guides used for qualitative were translated into regional and local languages. So mostly there were different, our regional language is Urdu, but mostly the people there were using their regional languages, which were Sindhi, Pashto, and Punjabi and Balochi as well. So what we did was that we translated our topic guides into those local languages as well, so that it made easier for the participants to understand. Auto-tape interviews lasted approximately an hour. Interviews were conducted face-to-face and via telephones as well. The analysis, the data is being analyzed according to the principle of framework analysis, which provides systematic and visible stages to the analysis process. Research team member with qualitative expertise and a trained service research data researcher are independently coding and analyzing the data. I would give the progress of the qualitative interviews. Fathers' interviews conducted were 24, mothers were 28. The community health workers, we did 17. Researchers 14 and stakeholders 22. The qualitative findings among the fathers were that, as Ishrat has already told us all, that it improved their low moods, and they had started having interest in their daily routine tasks, start thinking, improvement in their thinking style, had attachment and bonding with the children, because as Ishrat has already told you, that there is a stigma and the fathers are supposed just to work and give the finances and the things to the family, and they didn't have much time to spend with the family and the children. They started supporting the mothers in their household chores. That is another thing in our, I would say, culture and low middle income countries, that the mothers are supposed to do the household work and the fathers are supposed to go out and work and get the finances. It improved the hygiene management, home environment was improved. Their partners, because the partners were included in the parenting program, so they were easy to understand, and the feedback was that the content of intervention was that it was easy for them to understand the illustrator. Next slide, please. So I'll give you one of the participant who said that it improved the his mental health. Previously, I was worried about my work and financial issues, and due to those stresses, I used to feel low and depressed. After attending these sessions, now I feel happy and less worried about my work and other stresses. So those were the things. Now the improved child health and health and well-being. I can see my child health improve. Now she plays and gives less tantrums, and they learned how to distract the child as well. And the parent now started getting less angry on the children. And the child started playing with the fathers as well. Now you see that they said that the child was less fearful of the father. because the father when used to come with the stresses, and as Ishrat has already said, that they then used to be angry, and the children used to be really scared of the fathers at that time. The other one participant said, if you go back, Rabia, please, that the child is now physically healthy. Now we have already told you that the hygienic conditions were improved. And because of the hygienic conditions, and because of that, the children are now physically healthy, and their visits to their doctors are less now, which is for them is financially better as well. Can we go to the next slide? The qualitative findings of the mothers were that they have now improved understanding about impact of stress, supporting partners dealing with the stress and depression, improved understanding about child development, improved parenting practices. They have also started having bonding with the kids. Now, because the mothers were used to do the housework more and they didn't have much time to spend with the child. But after the intervention, they said that they have learned to have more attachments and they started bonding well with the child. Their physical development was improved. Their mental health, thinking style, and aggression was improved. They started to prefer partners, including in the parenting program. Partner inclusion in the intervention improved interpersonal relationship among them. And they suggested that we should have delivered these training during their pregnancy period as well. Next slide, please. One of the mothers said that I've changed a lot and able to give time to my children. If they are doing some stuff which is naughty and she doesn't like it, she said, I don't mind it anymore. I let them play, keeping in mind that this is their development and exploration of the world. And I also enjoy playing with them after completing my household work. Previously, I used to ask them to stay away from me. So these are some of the positive things which the mothers also said after the training. This is the intervention findings of the interventionist, that it change in perception of community about role of fathers in parenting, change in perception and attitude towards gender-based responsibilities. That is, because of it, it has reduced the stigma. It has changed the cultural beliefs and practices regarding parenting. That again, as Ishrat has already said as well, and I said that in our culture, the fathers are just supposed to work and give the financial support to the families. It has improved fathers and child relationship and their communication with the children. Barrier faced during the delivery of intervention was time constrained because of their work timings, supporting factors during intervention delivery. Yes, next one.
Sorry, Afsha, you've got a minute. We are already overrun.
Okay. I'll just give the next slide and then thank you. Yes, Rabia, if I can have the last slide then. These are the supporting. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we'll just give the supporters. These are the collaborators who have supported our project. Thank you.
Thank you both. Amazing work. Wishing you both all the best with your vision to implement it across Pakistan. So we won't be able to take any questions, but if there are any questions in the chat box, we'll make sure we forward them to you. So thank you. Thank you. We move on to our next presentation. And we've got Professor Susanna Haley with us. And this is one presentation that I'm really looking forward to, because just reading the amazing bio, a brief bio that I'll share with you, wonderful, amazing work. So she's a mother of two and has worked more than 20 years giving emotional support to women and their partners during birth. She's a writer, birth expert, physiotherapist. She's specialized in psychosomatics, pregnancy and birth, and is an experienced doula, which we'll find out what it means. Susanna works globally with the Birth Without Fear method and gives lectures and educates parents, midwives, hospitals, and other working with birth methods. Together, they work for an emotionally safe birth for all women. Welcome, Susanna, and it's over to you.
Thank you so much, guys. I'm so honored to be a part of this important conference and sharing my experience in this field, parenting, birth. They're, of course, connected, right? So this is a very important passage into parenting as well. So I will also share my screen here so I can just get a confirmation that you are seeing my screen, right?
Yes.
Perfect, because it gives me a better flow, but I forgot to take it from the beginning. But that happens to all of us. So back to the topic, guys, and I see and hear that we have a lot of focus also on the partner. The becoming fathers or partners is a huge part of the Give Birth Without Fear method. So my name is Susanna, and I'm the founder and the author of the book and method. And I worked more than 20 years with this very important topic of an emotionally safe birth. In my part of the world, I'm from Sweden, Stockholm. We do have a very medically safe birth. We do have a lot of knowledge and of course, the luxury of free healthcare as we do in Sweden. But what we do see is at the same time, fear of birth have been increasing tremendously during the years. So there is like a lack between the medical safety and the emotional safety. So the Give Birth Without Fear method comes and fills in that gap, that why are the birth experiences getting more fearful? Why do women get more traumatized? But we also see in science that actually the partner is also traumatized by a very, very stressful negative birth, because there we come to maybe what this conference is focusing more about, and the previous speakers, the relationship. The experience is a very, very important part. So I've been working as an expert. I didn't become a midwife, and this was actually a very strategical decision. I worked after my own birth experience where the method was born. I was one of these mothers who felt like the midwife is the expert. All women have done this before me. This is the most natural, normal thing. I didn't worry too much. I felt the body knows how to do this. I was about to get the shock of my life. Because as we know, we also live in a very unique period of time that's called the pain avoidance society, where we actually are quite poorly prepared for challenges generally in life. So thinking that the expert of giving birth is the midwife, the healthcare, someone else outside of myself creates that distance to the experience in itself. That's the key factor why we get afraid and scared. So when the contraction started, nobody had taught me what and how to cope and handle with it. And nobody had taught my partner how he could help me to go through the physical work of birth. Because the truth is that birth is the only normal, healthy thing we do take into the healthcare system to supervise if something happens and to be able to act. But that has created that gap that we as birthing women or persons don't no longer know how to do this work. So I got so shocked and so scared. My partner had no idea how to help me. And I felt like I was dragged into a sea of pain, and there was no meaning, no purpose, and I was drowning. And this is how many women feel when they're left there. And you talked about depression in the previous speeches. This will increase the risk of postpartum depression, negative experience that will follow years after birth and affect the bonding, the parenting, the relationship with the partner. So thankfully, to make a very long story short, we had a midwife, an older midwife that helped me. She pulled me out of that water. She showed me how to cope and handle with the contractions. And she helped my partner to give him a very clear focus, because the truth is, partners need a clear focus. Not too many, beautiful words. They need to know, okay, if you keep track of her breathing, help her breathe like this. If you keep track of her muscles, you help her do this, and you do it in every contraction, and you help her all through the whole birth. That helped him to understand. No, a lot of information. So together we coped with that challenge, and out of the birth experience was born a teamwork. We felt like a very powerful team, and that changed me forever. And I started working with birth thinking I was going to be a midwife. But I saw as an assisting nurse that women were as confused as I was. This is what we see in the movies is actually a very frightened birthing woman. What we see in the movies is that we have normalized stress and fear and panic in birth, and the poor partners say it wasn't that much I could do, or they have this cold cloth on their head. It's not enough. So I saw I could do so much in birth room after birth room, and helping partners, understanding myself, and the book Give Birth Without Fear was born. I chose to become a physiotherapist because I couldn't find the knowledge anywhere, why and how these amazing tools were so effective, how the birth partner got so strengthened in his role, and how they came out of the experience feeling empowered together, not just the woman, but also the partner. So I became a physiotherapist to be able to explain what I was seeing, because it worked. And this is then, a couple of years later, you see Trygg förlossning. This is Swedish, meaning confident birth. We created a care model for healthcare with the same goal: how to track and understand where emotionally the birthing woman and partner is. So we look at fear and stress and panic in birth as a complication. We look at it as something, as we don't leave somebody bleeding in their room, we don't leave the partner and the woman in stress and fear. So we teach them how to be able to track in the team where they are emotionally. We teach the couple how to prepare for birth so that they know their different roles, and all the team, the staff, including birth partner, the becoming father, and the birthing woman, has the same map built on physiology. So the reason why we work with healthcare is because this method is built on physiology. We had just understood what the body actually have, planned, and we have created a map so that we can consciously guide the body there, so that the birth partner, I usually joke in our childbirth classes with the birth partners that it's your job to remember this knowledge, because you don't do the work. So you have that, possibility to become that important guide, that lighthouse in the ocean of contractions, because this is what we forget. The contractions is a physical work that you have to do as the birthing woman, and this is how you do it. What we do as the experts is mostly to supervise that everything is following the right path. So the Give Birth Without Fear tool is actually focusing from the inside of the birth expert, that is the birthing woman. The physiology of birth is inside of us. Then we focus on the partner. How can, they help to really, really support and give love and confidence to their the mother to become. And then we also teach the healthcare. So you can imagine what powerful team we have then together. So the care model that we teach, since this is a professional setting and not with our becoming parents, is safe emotional birth, stress and fear evaluation. So how do we know, as the birth partner, the becoming father, if the woman is actually caught in stress and fear? We read the body language, and I'm going to explain a little bit more. What do we do when we are there? It's the next question. And this is what is unique with this method. We have so much beautiful research, guys, about the importance of, support. We have so much beautiful research and words and knowledge that women want more support, that fear of birth is increasing, that we have a gap. But this is the hands-on tools. What do we do? Because that's what will count when we start giving birth. I'm sure some of you in this beautiful conference have given birth. You can agree with me. You don't remember a lot what you have read. All that information comes in no, interesting form when those contractions hits you. The only thing matters is, what do I do with this? How do I help my body? How do I help my baby? But also, what kind of support? So this is our newly scientifically validated digital tool for the world with this method. So this has been evaluated through Sweden and 7 amazing researchers. And the focus, of course, is what we've been working with 20 years, is to lessen stress and fear through preparing the birthing mother what she will face from the inside of the physical work. How many times do we talk about what kind of physical work the body actually planned? That is not aerobe work, like when we're running a marathon. That is anaerobe work. That is coming from the autonomic nervous system compared to when we're running. So all of this knowledge for the birthing woman and her partner is what we give them. What is your focus in the birth preparation part? But also giving the birth partner purpose. The best evaluation comes from the birth partner. They say, oh my God, I had no idea how important I was. And you all know that empowering emotional response, I matter, I have a job here, I can do something, I can help. That's what we prepare them for. And then we give them a timer where they can count the contractions, but also be led through the contractions. So our early labor support application, ELSA, Birth App, is our new global digital tool to lessen stress and fear. So we're very proud and very happy about this. And the final results will come later in the year, but Karin Engeby has given me some heads up that they see a very significant result, and that is that the fear is lessening a lot, and of course the partners are feeling more empowered. So these are some pictures of the Give Birth Without Fear application, and you can see there that we have taken this very, very big step towards reaching out also to cultures. Like, I'm so honored to be a part of this important work that you guys are doing, because regardless of the medical situation, we can all together work for the emotional safety. So this is the beauty of this digital product, that you can work remotely. You can work with cultures or countries where we medically still have a long way to go, but we can reach through this knowledge into the birth experience. So of course I will try to have like 5 minutes at least for questions, so we can also have more questions. But what we work with the method is to have more empowering and safe birth experiences, but also strengthen the support and the partner. But treating the fear of childbirth before birth is also important, because it's secondary fear of birth that is increasing the most worldwide. That means we have a woman who's not afraid. She's feeling, you know, somebody's the expert but me. She goes through birth, she comes out traumatized. This will lead to a lot of cost for healthcare. It will lead to personally suffering. PTSD, as you see, as the fifth bullet point, will also increase. So the complications of being left in stress and fear and panic are huge. So this is what we need to pinpoint. It's not just an emotionally nice benefit. It actually affects the outcome. We see it increases the risk of longer birth, more interventions, higher rates of C-sections, postpartum depressions. The bonding is also affected negatively. And also just to imagine the after coming consequences the next time they're going to give birth, the years in between the children where they can be in baby blues for a very long time, that also affects the relationship. So science shows that it actually affects the relationship negatively when we leave the woman in childbirth in trauma, because unconsciously she will also blame her partner. Unconsciously she will feel abandoned, like she was left in something very, very stressful. So these are our goals globally, together with everyone that working with the method, but also to bring back the salutogenesis in birth health. It is being too much focused on the pathology. And as I told you, we need to understand how can we keep what's functional, what's working, and really understand the physiological plan of birth so we can make sure the body is working as good as possible. So I'm not going to dive deep. This is a part of our in-depth training, and I would love to discuss how we can have more training in really understanding all the parts of the method. But our goal is to go from fear to confidence. Our tools is the how do we get there as midwives, as assisting nurses, as obstetricians. How do we make sure we don't just save them from, you know, complications or death? How do we also make sure that at the same time we can give them a very, very positive birth experience? So I will land in our very basic physiological map. So what we work with is that the body already knows how to give birth, physiologically already wired since 40,000 years. So this is what we need to start with. This ability works. That's why we are a species that are very successful. But what can hinder and block? That's what we work with. So it's the hindering and blocking instead of a complicated way of breathing or, you know, a technique that takes us out of the physiology that this method is focusing on. And we just pinpoint that the whole plan was that if there's danger around us, fear comes. It tells the autonomic nervous system not so big chances to survive, and it will put the brake on the birth physiology. So this will create a negative spiral. And this is automatic. So we need to understand the physiological no. But of course, if we have a physiological no, we have a physiological yes. So then we just have to understand, when is the plan? How is the emotions talking down to the autonomic nervous system? The plan was that if we read the environment, no signs of threat, or I'm in an environment that is safe for me, I have big chances to survive. That's why the body chose oxytocin. So oxytocin is our power tool here because it's a hormone. We understand that actually during 40,000 years of evolution, the body chose an oxytocin, guys. Isn't that, just imagine that that's our peace and calm system hormone. It's the parasympathetic nervous system's hormone. It's the hormone connected to emotions of trust and safety, even love. And when we're sleeping or eating or, you know, resting, that's the hormone oxytocin that the body physiologically handpicked for birth. So when we understand that, and we understand that a hormone is a signal substance, all we need to do is to help the body to have as much oxytocin in the blood as possible. So that's like how we're working with the method. That's you know that I love during my 20 years to work with this method, because you don't even need to believe in it. Because it's wired through physiology, it will work. As we don't choose how we respond if somebody comes with a gun, it's the same on this side of the nervous system. It's automatic if we give the body the right signals. So this is our map that we use in our teaching for the becoming parents to simplify it. You talked about that they don't always have, a lot of education. So we just show them a very simple map of the autonomic nervous system. We show them the compass that in each and every contraction you work towards the feeling trust that will give you the birth hormone oxytocin and help you with resting, with breastfeeding, with all those benefits we get from this amazing hormone that Kerstin Uvnes Moberg has done research 50 years about, and is one of my closest friends. It's a huge luxury. She's also my role model. She's almost 90 years and standing on the stages. And I'm always saying, I want to be her. I want to stand on the stages when I'm 90, working with this important topic. So the oxytocin tap is what we call it. So when we understand this
Susanna, sorry
Yeah.
to interrupt. Just a pre-warning that you've got 7 minutes,
Yes.
which includes 5 extra minutes, and maybe we'll have 1 or 2 minutes if people want to there are burning questions.
Okay, so 30, right? Half I end.
Rabia? The time?
5 minutes remaining at 25, not
Okay.
30. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So our tools is focusing on what was the activator of the oxytocin. So instead of, as I said, a complicated way of breathing, we just understand the body language for the feeling trust, and we consciously focus through the coping mechanism in expressing trust in the contraction. So we get more trust, more oxytocin, more parasympathetic nervous system. And the good thing with oxytocin about the topic of today is also that it's the relationship hormone. That's why we see benefits in the relationship, that when they can together open the oxytocin tap and the birth partner has a clear focus, that hormone will also create a very, very good feeling within the relationship, that then they walk out of the birth room with having a very empowering experience together. It lessens anxiety, depression, and fear. So you can just imagine also for the partner and becoming fathers, how they are benefiting from the same hormone already ready. So we just focus a bit on the application that is the easiest way to access this knowledge. So the long labors is a huge problem, and to give them the right focus when they are at home, in the hospital, or countrysides. I'm not really familiar how you're working with your birthing couples, but this is a very vulnerable stage. The partners have no idea what to do. They feel confused and scared how the woman is behaving. So this is the way we will lessen the primary and secondary fear of birth. So also the staff is very stressed by not being able to help women with these strong emotions of stress and fear. So this is helping both partner to know what to do. The birthing woman to understand my body. This is not just a chaotic, painful experience. There's a plan. I can follow it, and the staff together. So we give tools and help to the staff as well. So the negative effects you see in the first bullet point will be lessened in the whole experience for staff, birthing woman, and the becoming fathers. And we don't have any, clear coping and handling action plan. So this is what we're providing, a clear plan. Go through these steps in the application. Use the timer to learn how to give support. And the ELSA Birth Up guides you through the whole experience. You're not left by yourself. We're there for you. We help you. We support you. So I really want to be able to, adapt this product globally. So I would love to work with some of you, how we could adapt it even more to your culture, to focus on equality, diversity, and inclusion of the birth partners, regardless of the cultural, because birth is universal. The physiology is universal. So the effects of oxytocin, thanks to that focus, will be everywhere. I work in Africa, for instance. So, I have so good results with all of these tools. Also, when we work in Africa with all of those birthing women, the midwives, the doctors there. We're going to translate it into more languages. So we're hoping to find also minority languages. So I'm sure you have a lot of needs there. How can we reach out to the birth partners to have a simple map and tool kit for them, how to prepare for birth, so that they have this teamwork together? So that was actually my last slide. So you see, so, here's the QR code for downloading the app, getting to know more about the method. The book, Give Birth Without Fear, is of course on Amazon to be able to be purchased. The app will give you the basics of the method. You have it in English when you go on board, and you can really get these simple tools that can be taught to anyone and work with us for an emotionally safe birth. So thank you so much for having me here, and it's just throwing in things here with the 20 minutes I have, but I'm very grateful for this opportunity, and I'm impressed by the importance of your work.
Thank you so much. We were thinking of Dr. Anila putting questions in the chat box. We
That's
will
fine.
have a break, but if people want to stay, not have the break, some of you burning questions, if Susanna is still with us, maybe she can answer those questions during the break. But if other people want to have a quick break, come back in 10 minutes, Rabia?
Yes, at 5:45.
Okay, so if people can be back in 10 minutes, those who want to have the break, then please do so now. Be back in 10 minutes. Dr. Anila, you can ask your question.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Naseem. A wonderful presentation, in fact. And I was thinking about a lot of factors. I don't know if you're looking at pain management, how to incorporate helping mothers to go through that process smoothly, because pain management is something they must be knowing about, because birth contractions and the signs of labor itself, most of time people are not aware about that, what is meant by labor actually. Even after looking at a lot of YouTube videos, even then, what labor actually is, it might not be clear to many women. So I don't know if this is something that is incorporated.
Yes, this is exactly the uniqueness of the method. So thank you for that question, because this is what's lacking. It's our understanding of our own bodies, because that also is a part of the KASAM, Antonovsky's, that you have that understanding, that meaningfulness to help you to develop trust. Trust is a feeling that helps us with stress and fear. So by giving them pain management, we do that only almost. I tell them, you can read about, the centimeters, but in the end, that's what's going to matter. But we train them that it's not a big ocean of pain. There's a specific physical plan that the body has made. How many times do we talk about that there's a rhythm? So when and why is the pain coming? It's expected. It is a normal, natural pain that will also be there even if you have pain relief. So you also need to work with this even if you have pain relief. So the structure is like this. You have the contraction, that's 60 seconds. You have the 4 tools to cope with the pain. That means your baby. And then you have a uniqueness that's called the break. So we talk about celebrating the break together as the couple, you know, celebrating that now we have 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Now we go into work part again. 4 tools. Let's work with the pain. Let's work with the... So this, as you say, is a key factor in this method to bring back, like our grandmothers were more prepared of challenges in birth. We're not.
Exactly.
We're not today. So that's why the young women get anxiety. They don't trust their bodies. They feel very confused because, like my grandmother said when I asked her, how did you do it? She was like, I gave birth. And I was like, yeah, but how did you do it? And then I understood she had 7 children in 35 minus in the Finnish forest, you know, and she was very used to challenges. So pain was just pain for her. And she, as a physiotherapist, had gone through, you know, that experience that I go through something challenging, I come out on the other side, I feel empowered, I could do it, and I believe in my possibility and power to do more challenges in life. That's how
Exactly.
we strengthen them. Yeah, we don't strengthen them with saving them from the challenge. We're strengthening them by saying, you can cope and handle this challenge. We don't romanticize. We are honest that the experience can be very challenging, but your body's prepared in 40,000 years. You just need to help yourself to get prepared, but also not to be alone. My women say the room was full of people, but I felt completely alone. So we need to be there emotionally with the birthing woman. We need to see her, help her, tell her she's held, give her a lot of love, because that the body is doing the physiology. It's not the medical part that does the physiology, it's the birthing woman, you know. So we empower.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And even like caregivers, in some ways, actually, the partner and other wise people around, if they are trained in such kind of like strategies, it would be really helpful, because most of time we are relying only on paramedical staff, midwives, and we have a lot of expectations from them. But I believe that the kind of like people you have around you, they must be knowing about all these facts, and it might be really helpful in certain cases.
Because as I told you, birth is most of the times working. So then we need to do this like 70% of the times. And then the few times we have pathology, then of course we act from the medical point of view. But the biggest part of birth is this knowledge, how to support the birthing woman to do the work. That's like 70% of it, not a surgery. So this is so important, and worldwide the same.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Najma, your quick question, because I'm conscious of we've got a couple of minutes before
Always time. Always time.
Dr. Najma, do you want to quickly ask?
Yes. Susanna, interestingly, your presentation was very one of my favorites. And specifically, I'm interested to know that what are the social cultural factors important in your research? Because as we see that the cultural phenomena plays a very dominating role in preventing tocophobia or childbirth fear.
Yeah.
Specifically, when women in a you can say individualistic and collectivist society, cultural phenomena are different, and many of the expectations are also different from women who are giving birth. So how your research has taken into account the mediating or moderating factors related to the social and cultural phenomena in your training, and specifically the technique of AI for supporting the working women was very interesting and one of the prime important. That you have altogether modernized the concept of social support into the AI. So I was interested in how the social cultural factors plays in the role.
Yeah, so thank you for that question, and I will try to be as brief as I can. It's a deep question, right? So the quickest answer I can give to you there, it is that, outside of social paradigm, outside even of the medical care, as I tell you, in Africa, Sweden, where we have high-tech technology, we have the human. So the good thing with the method, the physiological factor, is that we pinpoint the most basic needs of a human. That is actually support and love. So it goes beyond the social norm because oxytocin has that effect on us. It opens us to become mothers. It opens us to become and receive support. It opens us to, the relationship. So the emotional benefit goes beyond. So in Africa, we have newspapers writing about us, not about the medical part, but about the emotional part, because they experience pain relief. So that is the quickest question I can give you, that in the basics, we all are humans. And in the basics, we all need support and be seen and heard and loved, and not like overrun by medical or by cultural. In Africa, they slap them, in Sweden, they don't hear them because they are medically focused. The same problem. The human, the woman, the individual is not seen. So that is the quickest answer. But then we have to fine tune it into each culture to, as you said, the fathers are expecting to be the providers. But here we need to give them permission to also be emotionally involved. We need to give them permission that they are important. To change a culture takes time, right? So I hope that gave you some kind of, key that we'd come from the inside instead of from the outside with all the cultural blocks. Because when we are born, when we give birth, when we die, we all need the same support.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much. Yeah.
What a wonderful presentation, and your enthusiasm is felt. And I heard an invitation from you that others are welcome to contact you, and that you would be happy to have this shared in different countries. And
Yes.
we wish you well. My
Yes,
guess
thank
is you'll
you
be
so
getting
much.
lots of contacts. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
We will begin in about 1 more minute, and I just want to make sure that Maya is ready with her slides. I know that you're there, Maya. Rabia, are you doing the slides, or is Maya doing the slides?
Bindu will be facilitating.
Oh,
She is
Bindu.
here.
Okay, wonderful. Hello, Bindu. Very good. Well, we'll just start in just under a minute then. I noticed that Maggie Zhang from Canada has joined us. She was with Christian Children's Fund of Canada for many years, writing proposals, and delighted to have you here, Maggie. Okay, I think we'll get started. I'm so pleased to have Maya Gayatonde from Bala Mandir Kamaraj Trust with us. Bala Mandir has been providing important services for 75 years. And Maya has been was our first Learning Through Play international partner. And as I've mentioned before, taught the Hincks-Delcroix Center many things about being international partners, good international partners. And so we're very grateful to Maya over the years for this. She's a driving force in India, has taken Learning Through Play throughout India, many translations. And as we are very happy with, she sees, I think, Learning Through Play as part of a much larger parenting approach to parenting, and sees it as a tool that's useful in many places. But she's added to it, and she's not only spearheaded the launch of Learning Through Play program in India and the expansion to other organizations. She's developed the Joy of Parenting program, an ECCD training program for professionals, health and community workers, creche, kindergarten teachers, and NGOs working in various parenting environments such as urban slums, rural communities, tribal areas, childcare institutions, and migrant labor. We visited numerous times in India with Maya and her colleagues, and it's just amazing to me. They even at one time were working with sex workers on the street, and like what an amazing thing that these people have children and they need the care and support. So Maya, there's no stopping Maya. She just continues working away, developing things that are important for parents. And she, of course, is a trainer. She consults all over India and Tamil Nadu, where her home province is. And we're delighted to have you here, Maya. And it's take it away.
Thank you, Andrew. Well, thank you very much, Andrew, for that. The introduction. Just very briefly to tell you that in Balamandir, just give that, yeah. Balamandir Kamaraj Trust was started in 1949, and that's the institution which I'm head of, which is completed 75 years. It was dedicated to the cause of infants and young children, destitute and orphaned first, and now we have almost every branch of childcare, except perhaps a medical hospital. So we have special needs children and, of course, the Research Foundation. We were the first international partner of LTP, but the more and more I attend the conferences and all the meetings, I realize that we are probably still babies where the research angle of the work is concerned. But for us, the social impact that it was going to have to spread the message was really one of the most important things. If you know, India is a very large country and we have such a huge population and multi languages. So to take that message of how important both the mother and the father are, became really more important to us than the research. We are now getting involved with research, so maybe very soon we can share work that we are doing. Yeah. So just a map of India, the stars tell you where, which are the various, every time you see a star, you know that's a particular language that we've been working with. And you can see India is a huge country. There's so much more that needs to be done. While I could give you a statistical numbers, it might impress you very much, but when I look at it, it is a very minuscule part of what work really needs to be done across our country. Now, what was this project model that we had which created the social impact? Andrew was right when he told you that we always, by and large, we have a few projects that we've done ourselves in and around where we are or in the villages. But we always worked with partners, and the partners were the government. When it was Tamil Nadu, then it was the early Anganwadi center, that's the early child centers that are run across. And then in Maharashtra, we actually worked with the government. Then the other group we worked with were creche workers. People, and the creche worker was somebody who was working with migrant labor, urban, in the rural areas, in the tribal areas, the difficult circumstances. Because we found the basic thing of LTP, the messages were very clear. It's a matter of how you give it to the receiver based on their environment. And as just now we heard, she said beautifully, we all need love, we all need support, we all need to feel important. And that's really what we did first with the mothers and then with their support system, which was the fathers. I'll tell you, we expanded our support system a little beyond that, because in India, we still have the joint family. Then, of course, we went to the schools where the teachers started with the training of the children, the 3 to 6, very early. And therefore, they needed to be parenting the child, even as they were teaching them whatever they wanted to teach them in kindergarten. Now that parenting word came in as the way you do how you emotionally help the child, how you deal with the child, how you, basically it was all that SPRUC, which we all know is the basis of LTP. So then the sense of self, the physical, all of that you're all very aware of it. And then we worked with NGOs. And we continue this. This is the regional model. There are many more we might have started. There were women's groups, NGOs working with community development, community health. It's all there on that, street dwellers, even rag pickers. And as he mentioned even sex workers, because they were all mothers and they needed that support, whether they had the support or not of a partner. It didn't matter, but the child was there, the mother was there, and it was important for her to know, and for the NGO working with her, for example, what they could provide for her to bring the give the best to her child. Now, this LTP plus, the social impact was, there was always content development and dissemination. We've been doing different kinds of training. Training always tweaked and suited for the audience that we were going to teach. Basic principles would remain the same, but we learned the art of responding to the needs of the audience. And then we've done a lot of projects. When I say projects, I mean we worked in, like, for example, I'll give you a little more details about one of the projects where we're working in 21 villages, and now we're planning to increase that parenting work to about 50 or 60 villages in that particular. And then we created a lot of resources. We have created, indigenized resources. We had permission from LTP. So that is something we've done. Go ahead. Now, if you see, we brought out the Joy of Parenting guidebook for early childhood years, which was really, and if you see what is called we call it the red book and the green book, that's birth to 3 and 3 to 6. This was all indigenized pictures. And then we also went to the earlier stage. You will notice it was for the prenatal stage. So for the mother, we felt that the parenting of the child starts right in the womb. In fact, actually, even almost before the child enters the womb, where the couple, it was very beautiful when she said that the male must feel as important his role, not just as a provider, but a supporter, someone who's part of this. And everywhere we are finding, from whatever I hear, that how important fathers really need to feel. In fact, that was something when I heard about the Pakistan research, I said, yes. So you will find the father everywhere, and you will find the mother, father and mother. Yeah, would you? Yeah. So anyway, this just shows you what the Joy of Parenting guidebook. It has health, hygiene, nutrition, safety, special attention. And when we talk about special attention, or we talk about the health angles, we're not the medical, but we give indicators. In special attention, we are very clear that we only help the mother identify that perhaps there could be a problem. Because I've always heard people with special needs say, gosh, I wish the parent had come a little earlier, we could have helped more. Not that you can cure it. So it is, I think, very important for the mother to know, well, something is not quite right with the child, or I need to do something. And then before she needs to have someone tell her, okay, it's okay. If you do this intervention, it's very good. Or it could be that the child really needs an early intervention. We also thought in terms of the antenatal and the postnatal areas of conception, because we felt that's when the child, it's not just when it's born, it's not when we say 0. We looked at 0 at the almost from the point when the mother just is, she's pregnant, or she just starts the pregnancy. She needs to know. Now we went further into this, thinking of going into what we call the life cycle approach. Now, from whichever point you start, you will see that the life cycle approach says if you start to welcome the infant, then the child is nurtured. And then once the child becomes the adolescent, again, the adolescent needs all the understanding about what could happen if they become parents when they are not ready. All right. And then if it's the couple that decides to become parents, then they need to plan on parenthood. And again, you go to welcoming the infant. So if you look at it, the entire life cycle approach, we approached almost every single group and help them to realize what their role in the parenting would be. For example, we have a lot of need to tell the elders in our joint family system, where the mother needs all the daughter-in-law. Now, she's not looked at as the mother of the child. She looked at the daughter-in-law. So which means she gets very involved with all the work. She's not given all the right. It is still true a lot in India, where we think that the woman's role is of, doing all the work and everything like that, and she shouldn't be hanging around or resting during pregnancy. It's true across the world. Women don't give up their jobs just because they are pregnant, but they also need that rest, and they need that support. That word love and support is such a beautiful, those two. So this is something which we've had to do as a life cycle approach to parenting, right through. It goes right through this particular cycle. And anywhere you start, you always end up there. Okay. Now, the one thing, yeah, just the next one. I've always been fascinated by this KAP, knowledge, attitude, and practice. That's perfect. It comes in all our testing. Now, it just from experience, I would say that knowledge can be provided, and people are very happy to know. Most people are ready to change their attitude because it can be influenced. With knowledge, it can happen. But the most difficult is the practice, because that can never be changed without support from the immediate family, the larger group, or the community. And that is the reason why we are very clear that we are working with communities. Now, when we are empowering the community, I've just prepared this. I'd like to go to a little detail. One is the mother needs to be educated in her role as the woman as a mother. The father's role, his responsibility as a father, the support he can give to his wife, his role in psychosocial development of his child, very important. Then the role of the family members, because they play a very important role in India, about the family, Pakistan, all these countries here in Asia, that we have separate names for members of the family, and so they all have a say, the mother-in-law, the father-in-law. Now, they need to help her through her frustration and the loss of freedom, support the physical and mental strain of being on demand 24 hours once the child is born. So the role of the family members to support the woman with the little child is very important. Then we need very much more in India to educate all the employees. There is a law, but the law is not followed fully. There are factory laws which talk about her being able to breastfeed the child. Maybe in the Western countries, it's all very well organized, but in India, there is far great distance to go in this area. So that's one part of the commitment. Now, they all need to be encouraged. The woman knowing, or the father or the mother knowing all this information is not enough. Now, we have the self-help groups. And in the community, when you look at all these women getting together to enrich themselves with whatever it is, their knowledge or etc., just look at them as mothers, aunts, elder sisters, grandmothers, and mothers-in-law. Now you can see immediately they have a very important role in the life of that little young child and the mother who's to bring her up. Now we took the program to adolescent boys and men in their relationship with women and help them to understand that they are actually elder brothers, uncles, fathers, grandfathers, and fathers-in-law. It's again just the way you look at the person and you approach them. And we have had a lot of success in all our projects when we included the men in all these roles. I mean, referred to them. And in India, we have a particular name for each one. And that goes as per the language. It's a very culturally appropriate thing. Then, of course, the Panchayat, we call it PRI. These are the village elders in the community who need to feel that children are part of their larger family and parenting is important. And how important it is if the children do well, that their entire community would do well. And of course, orienting employers by following the law. This is something the educating, even orienting, it's a very tough thing, because a lot of the women are forced to send the child very early in creche, though there are laws which help, which support a woman's breastfeeding and things like this. This community empowerment, we look at it like this, all of these who have a role, quite apart from the mother. Yeah. Okay, so of course we've done a lot of our training only based on the LTPC tool. We do 1 day awareness, 3 days orientation, 6 days training, and of course a larger training program based on if they are going to implement in the field. These are just the trainings that we are doing. Now, there have been diverse projects, and I've just showed you, for you just to have a look. It's really to see the picture, to see. Now, you see very cute, where the migrant labor is there, you see those little things that are hanging are actually like little cradles with little babies there, where the mothers are able to come during their 15-minute break to feed the baby. You see the other ladies, if you see, you can see these are self-help groups in a tribal area in Gujarat. And of course, there are creches. We're just showing you, this is all we've done. A lot of work in the past. We continue to do that. That's okay. Then you have the even pavement and slum dwellers, street labor, and you have the children. You can see from the way the people are living in picture number 3 that this is just a little shanty, but even their children are being born. Even their mothers love their babies, and the fathers need to support. And the fathers actually also need to be loved. Someone needs to go and talk to them lovingly and say, excuse me, hey, you're being a father. That's a great job. Why don't you support? And how much you can. And we found a lot of fathers very receptive. They'd never been asked to be part of the entire family life. So it is not even, I would say, even their fault, because they were brought up like that. But when you approach them, we've had a very positive result from fathers. Okay, these were just some of the things we did. There were projects that we have done. We've created Inform Network with UNICEF. We worked with Action. We worked with a lot of organizations. Okay, and we've been very clear that we will work, and whatever the results are there, they have published it or whatever it is. But we made certain that the people were important. Of course, we've done give an advisory capacity for 2 Grand Challenges Canada. Very interesting is we've just given you a link there. We created for the first 1,000 days 55 animated videos. Very simple, less than 1 minute. But it just at that particular stage it covers the 1,000 days. And then we've done the other one, Saving Brains, where we did the involvement was purely for fathers, and we developed interesting tools and activities actually that fathers could do with the children. And one part of the project was that when they came, one of their sessions was always one where they had to bring their child, and they all sat down and they played together. And I think the fathers had an absolute wonderful time. We helped them to share that joy, which they could then take to the home. Now, what is our current project? This is a project that has been going on now for 10 or now it is in its 11th year. There are 21 villages. We're enhancing the quality of ECCD inputs through the ICDS. Now, that's one of India's largest. It's called Integrated Child Development Services. It's across the country. We only talk in terms of thousands and 55. Now, it's just interesting to know that in Tamil Nadu, we have 55,000, and our LTPC tool, Birth to 3, the indigenized version, is now available with every one of the 52,000 Anganwadis. So this is something we've done, 900 children and 21 villages. It's an ongoing project. And this is the area we're planning to now move from 21 villages to about 50 villages, because the response has been so positive to that. And we have done short studies to see that children who've gone through the early childhood project are actually doing so much better in the early primary level of their schooling. And so everybody said, they call it the BN program, but it's the early childhood program, and many people are good. Yeah, just go ahead. It's a center-based activities, community engagement, and home visiting. And we have the workers, and interestingly, because they have long distance to travel around the villages, all the women are very happily cycling and finding that a great empowerment that they now got a cycle, and they go door to door or village to village, depending on what their work is like. And the parents are very, very welcoming, because they find a change in the way their children are talking, are working. And you can see this is just, and you can see that it's not any fancy building or anything, just right where they are. It is something that you can, there's nothing, shall I say, academic about LTP. It is just so normal and natural that when you say it, very few people, they might say it's a little hard, maybe, but if I try, I'm sure I'd succeed. It's not something that, you need that's what our experience with LTP has been. Now, we've got 5 villages where we are now moved out, and there's just sustainability, meaning they have been with us for some time, and now we are looking at, okay, we're looking at, we're moving away, but we're continuing to see how long our ideas are sustainable in that village. Yes, go ahead. Bindu, go a little faster, just a minute. Okay. Now, these are just some numbers for you to know of the present figures of what we are doing in these villages. It's an ongoing project, yes. And of course, there's a very interesting parental feedback. Children have started studying well, waking up early, they're able to make friends, learning to share. All of these are beautiful. I mean, these are lovely things that they've shared. And there are many parenting practices they're already doing, which has been, which we are now able to, I mean, actually learn from the people in the villages, from the community. So that it's not, yeah.
About 3 minutes, Maya.
Yeah. Okay, fine. Just do the, yeah. Now, I just like to say that, Bindu, I'll just take this one. We did it through this 100 case studies program. I'll do it very briefly. We worked out that you could have a child observation record made, and then from that we developed a very simple COR, child observation record, which we have been using. It had just 3 measures because it would be for less literate women who needed to just measure whether the child A, B, or C. A meant the child had completed, B, that's beginning to perform, C, not yet. Now this we have taken, Bindu, just go through the other sides, please. So then this is a child assessment tool, which now has been validated, and we are now going to go into a much more formal kind of research, which will be used in our creches, in the kindergarten, in the Anganwadis, and the other areas that are going to be where we are doing our work, and we'll be using the same tool for the assessment of the child. Of course, these are just things that, and then of course we have our home visiting manual that has also been developed over a period of time, so that it's all been recorded. So now that's going across all our projects. So we have similar. Sorry, we've not shown. Just show the pictures. This is what we're doing. This is a tool that's already in SOMI. I'll just go ahead with all those resources, just because it's a lovely visual for people to see. We've now developed a pamphlet, a simple pamphlet on parenting. We shared it with Sylvania in, I think, and she wanted permission to translate into Spanish. We said, anything Balamandir is done, go ahead, translate into whatever you like. So this is a simple pamphlet that everyone can see, and you can see the various languages that we are working with in India. And of course, we converted all the LTP into an Indian scenario. No words, but it just helps people to understand very simply. They relate to it also. I'll be just showing you visuals of the way the brain development and the connections of the thing is. We have this on the floor design. So women do that, and while they're doing it, they're imagining that they are making the connections in their child's brain. Okay, and thank you very much. I'm sorry, I hope I haven't gone beyond my time.
Wonderful, Maya. Thank you very, very much. Maya, during your presentation, there was a request for the joy of parenting. So what I'm going to suggest is that if people want to get your presentation or materials, if they can just contact Rabia, and then she can put them in touch with you.
Yes, we will. We'll do that. They just can, I think we'll just see that the entire set is available with Rabia, so she can just happily let us know who she's given it to. That's all. Sure. And I would just like to say that the only thing that we are very keen on is copy left, not copyright. The left says that you just give the credit to Balamandir Research Foundation, and that's all. You can go ahead and do with it what you like.
And you can see Rabia's email in the chat box there. So once again, thank you so much, Maya. And I can just, based on some of the themes that have been presented here at the conference, there's a lot of overlap. And I think there'd be a lot of benefit from that we can learn from each other, our different organizations, and what we're building on. But, well done. Okay, so Nazim will introduce the next speaker. Nazim?
Yes, thank you, Andrew. And I'm delighted that we've got with us Dr. Karen Bass from Washington. She's an associate professor at the University of Washington, and she's the clinical director of Seattle Children's Autism Center. She's also the developer of the evidence-based parenting training intervention for challenging behaviors in autistic youths. Her most notable contribution, the Ruby intervention, has been classified as level 2 by the California Evidence-Based Clearinghouse for Child Welfare. Ruby manual has been translated into other languages, including Urdu. Welcome, Karen, and over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation to speak today. I'm going to go ahead and pull up my slides, make sure everyone can see those okay. Here we go. Great. So I'm going to be talking about parenting for challenging behaviors in autism spectrum disorder, and specifically the Ruby Parent Training Program. So I always start this talk off with a bit of a good news, bad news story. The good news is that we are getting better at diagnosing autism. We certainly have really nicely developed tools, either screening tools or more comprehensive diagnostic tools. And more providers are getting trained in assessing autism. What a lot of our families are experiencing, however, is if their child does receive a diagnosis of autism or other intellectual or developmental delay or disability, they're really struggling with accessing interventions to help support their children. And I think this is an interesting challenge to consider, because when a family, receives the diagnosis of autism for their child, they're told, get services right away. The more services you can get, the better. And so they're hearing this message of really urgency around getting treatments for their child, and yet are experiencing in practice significant difficulties accessing those interventions. One of the more common ones that is recommended is applied behavior analysis, or ABA, which is an evidence-based treatment that can be very, very effective. It also just happens to be pretty time intensive and can be costly. And because it's so time intensive, it's also personnel intensive, meaning one provider, one behavior tech, for example, could maybe see 2 to 3 children in a week if they're doing 15 hours or more with that child. And intervention usually lasts several months to years. So when you have such a high intensity program, it's going to make it harder to be able to see many children in a shorter period of time. So there are challenges around broader access to ABA services for our families. So this is where parent training can come in. Parent training is traditionally a time-limited intervention. It's usually 1 to 3 hours a week, 10 to 20 sessions. But one of the most powerful things about parent training is that it emphasizes the parent as the agent of change. The idea that we can support parents to learn the strategies and techniques that can support their child, and then be able to utilize those strategies throughout the day and during daily routines. So it really, again, emphasizes the parent as the agent of change for their child. What's really exciting, though, is we have decades of research now that suggests that parents can absolutely learn the strategies to help support their child. And if you look at programs like The Incredible Years or Parent-Child Interaction Therapy, again, decades of research that therapists can work with the parent to learn the strategies. The parent can then successfully implement the strategies with their child and promote positive behavior change. I think this idea of parent training specifically for autistic and IDD youth is really important, because when we talk with their families, we hear the very practical challenges around challenging behaviors. And when I say challenging behaviors, I mean things like meltdowns, physical or verbal aggression, difficulties transitioning through daily routines, and really behavior that interfere with just kind of functioning throughout the day. And there is some literature to suggest that the most challenging part of supporting an autistic child is not the core symptoms of autism per se, but these co-occurring challenging behaviors. I would also throw in there toileting skills, feeding, and sleep challenges. We also know that children may struggle with adaptive skills deficits or those daily living skills. So in practice, this means they struggle with skills like getting dressed, brushing teeth, bathing, mealtime skills. And we see a link that when there are challenging behaviors present, we're also more likely to see those adaptive skills deficits. And so if we can work with families to learn strategies to help with challenging behaviors, we may also talk about changing and improving adaptive skills. We know our families are very, very stressed, and they may engage in rates of accommodation, which just means that they oftentimes do things for their child because it's difficult for the child to do it independently. And lastly, I just want to highlight that sometimes there is messaging that parents do not want this type of intervention. And when you really look at the research, the suggestion is parents do want parent training, but more importantly, they want good parent training. So I wanted to just summarize real quickly what you might find in a traditional parent training program for challenging behaviors in particular. You will find strategies that are fundamentally about improving the relationship between the parent and child. So you'll hear skills like providing praise or finding one-on-one time, ways that they can spend time together and play and enjoy each other's company. We talk about reinforcement or token systems. We might talk about differential attention, which means just mindfully really focusing on attention for really appropriate behaviors and maybe reducing attention for negative attention-seeking behaviors. Strategies around following instructions, and then timeout. What I want to focus on is what we might want to specifically see in a program for autistic or IDD youth. And the most important lesson that we have for families is this idea that behavior is communication. When your child is hitting, they're trying to tell you something. When they're screaming, they're trying to tell you something. When they run out of the room, they're trying to tell you something. If we can figure out what that child is trying to communicate through their behavior, that creates an opportunity to think about strategies that might be helpful to support the child to be able to navigate that interaction or routine. And the way that we figure out what is that child trying to communicate through their behavior is by using the antecedent behavior consequence model to collect data to ultimately hypothesize the function. So I'm screaming as my way to get out of something that's difficult, or I'm screaming as my way to tell you I want that thing that I can't reach, or I'm screaming as my way to get your attention, or I'm screaming as my way to just enjoy that the sensory sensation or physiological sensation of screaming. We want to figure out, and using ABC data to figure out the function of that particular behavior. We talk about the role of setting events, which just means that there can be precursors or primers to challenging behaviors. So we talk about our children who maybe go to a school environment all day and they have sensory input and academic demands and social demands, and they hold that all day and then come home and just fall apart. They start crying or it might become really reactive to very simple instructions. And it's because it was the buildup of all of the stress of that day might make an instruction later on very difficult for them to follow. So thinking about not just what happened right before a behavior, but also larger contributing events. We also talk about understanding that when a child may have difficulty engaging in a task or a routine, it's not because they don't want to do it. They don't want to do it. It's that they may really struggle with actually being able to do it. They can't do it. They might have a rigidity, or they might not understand what's expected. So really understanding what's really driving a child's inability to maybe follow an instruction. In terms of interventions, we focus heavily on what are called antecedent management approaches, really just what can we do to set the child up for success. So this could be changing how we give instructions, providing choices. We talk a lot about using visual supports. So children oftentimes can do better when they can see what is expected versus just being told what's expected. And then we have functional communication. Again, going back to that idea that if behavior is communication, and we can figure out what that child is trying to communicate through the scream or the hit or the throw, that might create an opportunity to help teach them a more appropriate or effective way to communicate their wants and needs. So I've highlighted here actually several programs that are available for autistic youth with challenging behavior. Some of them were programs that were developed for children that don't have autism and have been modified for autism. So the Incredible Years, Parent-Child Interaction Therapy, and Triple P. And there's some other programs that were actually developed from the beginning for autistic and IDD youth. And that's where the Ruby Parent Training Program comes in. That's the program I'm involved in. But there's also a program called the AIM High program that came out of California. And then also a program called Predictive Parenting, which is out of the UK. So this is an outline of what is in the Ruby program. What you'll see in that very first session, and the core sessions are all the intervention strategies we want all families to have. We start by teaching the ABC model and the functions of behavior. We then move into prevention strategies. Then we move into more consequence-based strategies like reinforcement, planned ignoring, following instructions, and then we finish the program with teaching skills, so functional communication and teaching skills. You'll also know that we have a set of supplemental sessions. That's because if we want to work on toileting, we're going to rely on skills and strategies from those 11 core sessions. If we want to work on feeding, we're going to rely on strategies from those 11 core sessions. So we really can focus on a very wide range of behaviors through the Ruby program. The program as originally developed was designed to be one-on-one, so one provider to one family. I think a real strength of the program is that it is very structured. There's a manual, there's a parent workbook, it has activity sheets, videos, a handout that summarizes content, and this clinician manual is quite scripted, which really allows the provider to have a lot of guidance about what they might work on or teach in any particular session. An important part of the program is how we develop practice strategies. And that really is a collaboration between the family and the provider to figure out what the family might want to work on and try for the week. So I'll just end by talking about Ruby in practice. The first is just going through what a traditional Ruby case might look like. And we have studied Ruby from ages 3 to 14 years of age, although we are also actually just getting ready to start a pilot randomized clinical trial of Ruby with autistic adults and their caregivers. Honestly, age is less important for Ruby. It's more about the behaviors that we might be focusing on. Ruby, because it's a lower intensity program, that kind of 1 hour a week model, we're going to be talking about mild to moderate challenging behaviors. So meltdowns, aggression, behaviors that come out as a part of transition difficulties, etc. What we're going to be more mindful of is children who have very significant challenging behaviors that might result in hospitalization or tissue damage. Those are children that honest, I know this is easy to say, knowing that this is very hard to access, but ideally that's a child that has a higher level of support because of the severity of the behaviors. And what we really need is a parent, a caregiver who can attend the sessions. And the really nice thing about Ruby is it can serve children across the autism spectrum and cognitive spectrum, meaning it works just as well for a non-vocal, non-verbal 3-year-old as it does for a on grade level 12, 13, 14-year-old. So it really can work across the cognitive and developmental spectrum. One of the, I think, aside from helping parents understand that behavior is communication, we also really help families think very broadly about how they can understand what might be contributing to challenging behaviors. And what we're fundamentally trying to do is help parents understand that when a child has a challenging behavior, it's not because they're defiant or non-compliant, but there probably is a better explanation. Like it could be they don't understand the instruction. It's a receptive language challenge, and that's why they may have difficulty following an instruction. They may not be able to communicate what they want and they need. It might be an expressive language challenge. It could be a sensory sensitivity. So a child who is screaming because they're hearing something that is really hurting their ears. It's a really sensory aversive sensation. And so their behavior is a way of communicating, I'm having a very negative sensory experience. It could be related to a fine or gross motor skill vulnerability. They don't know how to hold their utensil or get dressed because of fine motor skills difficulty. So we want to help the families think about all the possible explanations for why a child might be struggling behaviorally. One of the last things is just to acknowledge that Ruby is a family-centered model of care. What that means is that The provider's job is really to support the family in meeting the goals they have for their child, and for the family to have choice in what strategies they want to try. So the family decides the behavioral targets and the strategies they want to try, and then the provider helps guide them in successful use of those strategies. And that partnering and co-construction is what results in behavior change. What I'm really excited to say is that, I think Ruby can be a really helpful program, but you don't have to take my word for it. There is actually 3 large-scale randomized clinical trials on the Ruby program, and several smaller pilot studies. And what we have found through Ruby is that we can get about a 50% reduction in challenging behaviors, a significant improvement in those daily living skills, and that parents really like it. In this particular study, 89% of the families that started treatment finished treatment. We only had 11% dropout. And we also know, because the manual is really structured, that providers can really engage in the intervention with very high fidelity. I also wanted to share that we have expanded the modalities for delivering Ruby. So initially it was a clinic-based intervention, one parent or one family to one provider. We've since expanded it to delivery via telehealth, which can help access for families that can't, come to the local clinic, and also a group model where we can serve more families at a time. These are some of the newer modifications that we've made with Ruby. Ruby is now actually in an app form. So for families that can't access a provider, it's an opportunity for them to get access to the information and at least learn the ideas and strategies while they might be waiting for services. We've modified Ruby for schools and are teaching educators how to support students, their autistic students in the classroom. I mentioned that we're working on modifying Ruby for caregivers of autistic adults, and we have several community-based implementation projects that we're working on. How do we train non-specialty providers in the Ruby program? So to summarize, Ruby is a low intensity, low cost, evidence-based program. What is really lovely about Ruby is because it's lower intensity, it can help address some of the pipeline access issues our families are experiencing in relation to getting access to evidence-based treatments. Providers have the opportunity to serve several families through this model of care. It can be effectively implemented by a range of providers because of the structure of the manual. So I've trained, nurse practitioners and, first-year master's level students. We actually have a project in the state of Maine where we're training high school and bachelor level providers, speech therapists, psychologists, et cetera. So we know a lot of people can utilize this intervention, and the training tends to be a lower intensity. So we certainly have a clinic model here where we're training practicum students, but there's also, informational webinars, and there's a lovely Ruby Project Echo that's out of Nationwide Children's. That's a community collaborative learning model for providers in the community. And with that, I will stop. And I think I actually was right on time. So thank you so much for your time. And I'm happy to answer any questions if there happen to be.
Thank you so much, Karen. We do have a couple of minutes. So my 2 quick ones are, it's in Urdu.
Mm-hmm.
And is it just used for now within the USA, or is it gone out to other countries where people speak the language?
Yes, that's a great question. Yes, and Nadia Shafiq, who is here at Seattle Children's with me, has translated it into Urdu and has been doing pilot work of Ruby in Urdu. It's also been translated into, the parent workbook has been translated into Spanish, Korean, French. I'm working on translating it into Arabic, and I feel like I'm missing so it's a relatively new intervention. It was the big article was published in 2015 and the manual came out in 2018. So we're actively working on translations, but yes, we're hoping to continue to improve access to this intervention around the world. Yeah, I actually did get an email 2 days ago from a provider in Indonesia that's using Ruby, and was just sent an email to say thank you that this has been working really well for my families. So
Karen, we'll be looking for Ruby in Pakistan.
Wonderful.
The other quick one. With adults with a cognitive, so with intellectual disabilities.
Mhm.
Would this Ruby, not the adult version, would we be able to use this in adults with autism, comorbid intellectual disability?
Yeah, in fact the adult version we piloted it already with families who had an autistic adult. With 3 out of the 4 adults that we served also had IDD. So again, the way the curriculum is set up, it really allows flexibility around developmental level independent of age. What we really have focused on with the adult version is leaning more into a collaborative model where we want the autistic adult to have an opportunity to engage in the treatment as well versus just being caregiver mediated. So that's one of the bigger changes. But we also have more focus on like adaptive skills and skills of independence in the adult version.
Thank you,
May I
Shella.
ask- Yeah, may I ask? Hi, I'm Shella Minhas. May I ask if the training is it the same for parents as well as for the caregivers, or is it different? Are you using different set of rules for parent training and different for the trainers who are training people?
There is a different training. If you are a provider that wants to learn how to implement Ruby, that is a different training than what you're giving directly to. So it's essentially it's a train the trainer model for providers.
Okay.
Versus the direct parent training. And actually it's reminding me, I'm going to put my email in the chat. If anybody has any further questions or follow-up or has interest in training or translations, we love that as well. Please don't hesitate to reach out. So I'm just going to put my email here. It's just kbears@uw.edu, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. My goal, what drives everything I do is access to care. How can we help families, be able to receive these interventions that we know can be helpful for them?
Karen, you're doing remarkable work, and it's really much needed everywhere. Everywhere, it's much needed. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. I'm sure people will get in touch with you. Thank you very much. So now it's over to Andrew to introduce our next speaker. Andrew.
Dr. Tarela Ike is our final speaker. When she's finished, Dr. Nusrat Hussain will have some closing comments, but I'm happy to have Tarela with us. She's a senior lecturer at Teesside University, United Kingdom. Tarela's research interest revolves around forensic mental health and she's published around this theme. Tarela is also involved in co-leading evidence-based intervention using diverse methodologies, including randomized control trials to address psychological disorders such as postnatal depression, trauma, bipolar disorders, psychosis, suicide, and self-harm in a range of settings. Tarela, we're really happy to have you with us today, and you go ahead. I'm assuming that she...
Sorry, please, can everyone hear me? I was
Yes,
having an issue with my...
Welcome,
Thank
Tarela.
you. Apologies for that. I just had to run over from the other meeting. Okay. So today I'm going to be talking about learning through play plus culturally adapted cognitive behavior therapy for treating postnatal depression for Nigerian women. Please, next slide, please. So I'll start off with the outline to give an overview of maternal mental health and well-being within the context of Nigeria, as well as the phases of the overall project, so how it all started in terms of the empirical studies that we've conducted up until the stage where we are now in the process of conducting a feasibility study. And I'll also be talking about the proposed methods that we are adopting, as well as the tentative conclusion and recommendation from the project. Next slide, please. So in terms of the background, by 2030, depression is going to be one of the leading causes of global disease burden. And that's quite concerning, especially when you think about it from the context of low and middle income countries like Nigeria, where access to mental health and well-being is quite challenging in terms of the cost to be able to access effective care. And 1 in 3 women also appears to experience postnatal depression due to childbirth and the parenting challenges that comes with it as well. So within the context of Nigeria, especially as relates to women, there is high level of single parenting, which our previous empirical studies have established. And there is also lower service uptake of mental health care. And then this is partly due to some of the cultural practices that are quite prevalent, as well as the stigma that are associated with mental health care. So all of this constitutes a challenge. And then 20 to 30% of Nigerian mothers suffer from postnatal depression. Again, you'd see that the citation we have is Suleiman 2016, and this is partly to do with the fact that there is very limited up-to-date research regarding the statistics within the context of Nigeria. And as Suleiman's studies also suggest, only 1 out of every 5 persons are able to have access to any care. And that shows a significant number of persons that really need the much needed mental health support to be able to address this very important situation. Next slide, please. Okay, so that sort of set off the purpose of the current study. So this study was, obviously we've done a similar trial within the context of the UK for African and Caribbean mothers. But the aim of the study specifically is to examine the feasibility and cultural acceptability, including the appropriateness of learning through play plus culturally adapted cognitive behavioral therapy, treating postnatal depression among Nigerian mothers, women, with the purpose of improving their mental health and well-being, and also their child well-being as well. So before we got to the stage of this feasibility trial, we have conducted a series of patient and public involvements to sort of get the community, the affected participants' input in terms of what they would like to see within the context of this intervention, in sort of integrating it to the intervention itself. And we've had an empirical study that comprised 40 Nigerian women with lived experiences whose input was very much instrumental in further shaping this specific intervention for the purpose of the Nigerian population. And as part of our team, we also have 2 Nigerian mothers with lived experience who are part of the co-investigator. So it shows that co-production approach to ensure the effective delivery of the intervention. So this is just a pictorial representation of all of the phases of iteration that has informed the study. So in phase 1, we conducted a qualitative study with 40 moms with lived experience. So I'll be talking about that in the next slide. And then in phase 2, we also are planning to test the feasibility of this specific intervention to see, like I said, if it's culturally appropriate and if it's quite feasible to do this trial within the context of the identified population. And we're hoping to scale this up in the future using a fully powered randomized control trial to test for its clinical and cost effectiveness. Next slide, please. So in terms of the preliminary study, so this specific study, so the citation is on NIF, which is about mental health experiences of mothers in JOS. So this specific study is examined the lived experience of mothers in JOS, and we adopted a snowball and purposive sampling technique to recruit these mothers. So data collection was done using a focus group that lasted approximately, and we audio recorded the focus group and transcribed them verbatim using the interpretative phenomenological analysis to analyze the data. So by that, we're looking at their lived experiences and we're trying to make sense of the ways in which these participants themselves make sense of their lived experience. So in terms of the findings, the overarching themes that emerged from the participant lived experiences was the experience of persistent psychological distress, and these were mostly from the time of their labor and childbirth. And there's also the issue of the struggle of being able to process this psychological distress that they go through for a number of reasons, one of which is cultural reasons and the stigma that has been attached for a mom to say that they're on issues. And then there is like I said, the cultural practice that influence these feelings and the difficulty to be able to express themselves in ways that help them manage the situation effectively. And then there was also the findings of anxiety, especially for the new moms, in terms of what the whole process is and how they can make sense of the feelings that they were going through. And then the issue of limited knowledge of childcare, what it involves, and how that could impact on your emotions, your mental well-being, and their sense of self. And there was also the issue of healthy food that they were meant to be eating. So in terms of diet, what's the most appropriate food for them to eat and that sort of thing. So these were sort of the preliminary findings that we got from that specific study. And that was very instrumental in informing the patient public involvement and other series of activities that we've had to sort of bring this whole ideas together and incorporate it in the LTP+C CBT. So currently we are at stage 2, which is the proposed feasibility study, which we're in the process of starting. And as part of the inclusion criteria, we have women who are self-ascribed as, so again, this we've done similar studies in the past for the British African Caribbean women, but within this context, it's meant to be women who are ascribed as Nigerians, so based in Nigeria, and between the reproductive age of 16 to 49 years, and living with children that are aged between 0 and 36 months, and as well meeting the DSM-5 criteria for depression using the structured clinical interview guides. In terms of exclusion criteria, we're not going to be including women that are less than 16 years of age, women that are diagnosed with a severe physical or cognitive disability, and women with active suicidal ideation, including severe psychosis, any woman that's unable to give informed consent. Then regarding the methods, so again, this specific intervention is, the specific design is going to be randomized. So we're going to have 2 groups, which I'll talk about in much more detail in the next couple of slides. But the methods, so I'm talking about the experimental group, which would be having the LTP+C CBT. So the LTP+C CBT is underpinned by Bowlby theory of attachment, as well as Paget theory of cognitive development. And we are going to be using the pictorial calendar to depict some of the successive stages of child development and mother-child interaction through play during the course of the intervention. And then the second component, which is the cognitive behavior therapy, would involve how to change negative thinking, sense of self, active listening techniques, as well as the gentle probing for cultural beliefs. So challenging those cultural assumptions that are unhealthy, that lead to more positive thinking and positive behavior as well. And then there'll also be components of homework and exercises that builds on all of this. For example, case scenario of changing negative thinking, as well as the pictorial calendar for child successive stage of development. Next slide, please. So like I said, in terms of the trial design, it's a randomized control trial involving 2 groups, And we are hoping to recruit approximately 64 participants that will be randomly assigned. So we'll have 32 participants in one group, which is the experimental group involving the LTP plus CBT. And then in the second component, we'll have 32 participants that will receive the usual hospital care, be it in the form of medications for depression and all of that. Then in terms of the outcome, the primary outcome measures, we are looking at the cultural appropriateness and acceptability. So we are going to be collecting data from baseline and end of intervention, as well as the follow-up to compare, for example, the number of participants that were able to attend all sessions and all of that. And then we're also going to be looking at participant satisfaction using the appropriate intervention skills. Then in terms of the secondary outcome measures, we're going to be looking at whether it's potentially useful for reducing depression using the patient health questionnaire, which is a PHQ-9, and then also for anxiety using the GAD. Then in terms of the qualitative ambit, we're going to be conducting interviews as well as focus group with these participants with the aim of eliciting their views and experiences, what they found useful and what they think could be done to further improve the intervention. And then for method of analysis, next slide, please. Thank you. For method of analysis, because it's a feasibility trial, we're going to be doing more of descriptive statistics that will be calculated for the purpose of determining the confidence interval estimation of the LTP plus CACBT intervention in comparison to the usual care. And we're also going to be using analysis of covariance at the baseline and as well as the post-score as the outcome measure. So for qualitative data, just like we did in the empirical study, we will be using interpretative phenomenological analysis. And the reason for this is because we are more interested in the participant lived experience of the intervention to get their own perspective, whilst incorporating all of the three elements of IPA, which is humanetics, idiographic, as well as phenomenology. So in conclusion, we are hoping that the current study will help in ascertaining the cultural appropriateness as well as feasibility of the intervention for addressing postnatal depression among mothers in just Nigeria. And we also envisaging that this intervention would help inform a larger randomized control trial that would test the clinical and cost effectiveness of this intervention so that it will be able to reach a larger sample size. And again, this is really important because the LTP plus CACBT does contribute to to a significant extent to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, especially as it relates to promoting health and well-being, which is the SDG goal 3, and promoting inclusive and equitable quality education and lifelong learning opportunities, as well as gender equality and empowerment of all women, which is something that is quite a significant challenge in Nigeria. So I would like to acknowledge all of the funders that provide some form of funding in one form or the other throughout the course of the project, including Peel, Manchester Global Foundation, the University of Manchester, NIHR, as well as the National Lottery Community Fund, to mention but a few. Thank you very much. And any question?
Yes, if you have a question, let's just quickly put it in the chat box, and we'll take a look at that. While you're doing that, Twila, thank you very much for your presentation. I know that Dr. Dung wanted to be here as well, but that wasn't possible. We look forward to the updates on this project as time goes by. But thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Is there any questions? We have a minute or two.
Yeah, just a quick question from last presentation. Do you think there are some unique cultural factors, something that is really important in terms of evaluating the effective implementation of this intervention?
You're on mute, Torella.
Sorry, please, could you take the question again?
Yeah, I was just looking for some unique cultural factors which are really important, especially when you interpret the evaluation of this intervention in Nigeria.
Oh, some unique cultural factor. I think one of them is in relation to the language that is being used. So, for example, when we were interviewing some of these mothers, they did say something about using the word depression, that depression itself is quite stigmatizing. So they would want maybe things, because if a mom, for example, from Nigeria is say to maybe a friend or family member that she's going for an intervention for depression, then they will think she's mentally unstable. So they recommended, for example, appropriate words that are not stigmatizing the nation. And I think that ties in with the culture, because that's one of the reasons why there is less mental health uptake within this population. And then there is also the aspect of some culturally sensitive practice. So for example, look at, like, if a child is crying and the mother is petting the child, it's often considered that she's spoiling the child culturally. So there is that sense of, okay, how do we unpack this type of harmful cultural practice in a way that doesn't really disregard the cultural values, but just making them see that there's another side to it. So there are some cultural aspects that really informed the proposed delivery that we're going to be doing, that we definitely are going to be incorporating as part of it.
Thank you.
Probably have time for one more question. Okay. Well, thanks again, Tarela. Appreciate it. Before we go to Dr. Nusrat Hussain for closing comments, I want to just thank each of the presenters and each of the participants. You've been a wonderful group, and I can tell that you're paying close attention and you're looking for ways that you can share your work with others. I just think this is a wonderful way for cross-fertilization of programs and services. I want to thank Rabia again for the wonderful work you've done, Rabia. She does so much behind the scenes and keeps this running smoothly. Nasim and Nusrat have been co-chairs of this planning of this conference, and thanks again for your good work. I haven't checked with them, but I know that they'd be happy to hear by email of any suggestions you'd have for the 4th annual global conference. And so what are some of the things you'd like to see in the next conference? The other thing I just want to point out is that you folks are very, some of you are very patient, because in California, we started it was 4 o'clock in the morning, and in Australia it was 9 o'clock at night. And so it's an amazing range of 15 hours starting time. And so while some of you were looking to go to bed, others could hardly get up, So anyway, thank you very much for your full engagement with this conference. So Dr. Nusrat Hussain, we'll look to you for closing comments. I know that you might want to talk about some research, you might want to talk, but whatever comments you want to make, you're the man, and you're the one behind all this, and we're delighted to have you with us.
Thank you very much. Apologies for that. I was not able to attend some of the sessions, but I was able to get the feedback from Rabia about each of the presentation which were yesterday. I would, Andrew has kindly thanked people like Rabia, but I would like to start thanking both Andrew, you and Nasim for being excellent chairs for the 2 days. I'd also like to obviously thank Rabia, who's been, like you said, instrumental for making it happen. And she was supported by Ziauddin University, where you may know Bill has set up a research center of excellence on parenting and early child development. Speakers, you have Tang, Andrew, all the participants, you see all from different parts of the world. And one of the things that I was thinking about that should we try and do that we are able to cover half the world quite well, but the other half should we have like 2 separate days, 2 separate timings, one which covers this half, which we are, but let the people who wake up in 4 o'clock in the morning or up at night in the 9 in the evening. So something to think about that how we can do that. The talks are being so brilliant about which is from birth trauma to the Ruby to LTP. I'm very familiar with is something which we have been working for a number of years. Some of the things which come out to me from these, we are now talking about the 4th conference next year. That is so hugely important. I was in a meeting today, and they were talking about how you can prevent adverse childhood experiences. Many of the speakers have talked about the parents' health and well-being and the impact on the children. Why is it that as clinicians, as academics, we are not giving enough attention? Why do we come so late when we know that 50% of the mental health disorders start before the age of 14? Having this kind of knowledge, why are we so focused on beyond adolescence? So very little research going on, and this dyad work with the parent and the child. And again, it was the other thing which was interesting about the adverse childhood experience meeting was involving all the carers. Is that if they got, the mother and a child, or even the 2 parents or the child, do not exist in silo. It is the wider social determinants of health and well-being. If we look at more as the household, how we are able to contribute some research. I'm sure research must be going on. How can we approach and identify people so that for the next year, I was thinking about more, how do we link in with the third sector? How can we engage with them more? I know about a number of organizations working in this area, in the third sector in the UK. How do we bring them on board? Because they are the ones more engaged with the community. They are the ones who are more likely to scale it up. We have people like Shaila Minhas attending these meetings who run Montessori schools. How can we, engage with schools more? How can we bring them on board? How can we work with the teachers and because a lot of it is applicable to that group. The other thing I was quite impressed was a presentation by Sumbul and Ishrat. Bringing men into the picture. I think that is again something we need to learn. I can talk from Pakistan perspective that we have not been able to do so well with regard to family and population health and looking at the size of the family, because unless and until you involve both the partners, you can not really make progress. So when we talk about co-parenting, when we talk about involving family, I think we would need to look at in our next conference how we can start to thinking of those and what is that we want. What is the purpose of this conference? I can share with you my reason and purpose from the time back in year 2000 when I met Andrew for the first time. Is from I was doing research on depression in adults, and the concern was after that research was what is happening with the children if we know the mom is depressed or dad is depressed. That is the time since then we have been working mainly with learning through play. I'm also a believer of that one size does not fit all. So we do need to look at different kind of approaches, different kind of programs. And that this conference is really serving very, very well. That there's not only, the children with normal growth, but also the children who have additional needs, special needs, and that is being looked at. But how do we scale it up? What new research questions can come from this conference, and how do we share that? So we engage with the third sector. We bring in other sectors which are important, like education, and bring them in and look at. I know there are WHO programs. How do we engage with the World Health Organization? How do we engage more with UNICEF? We are developing a project on out-of-school children. And one of the things which we should not forget is the out-of-school children. When we think of an intervention, we usually think, school is a great setting. And that is correct. School is a great setting. But if you think of countries like Pakistan and you think of Nigeria, half of our children are out of school. How do we address that is important. We have started to look at physical health and socio-emotional development. That is important because the large number of children with malnutrition, stunting is worrying, is a big, huge public health issue. And we need to look at how do we bring that in? Who do we work with wider? And with that, I was thinking about, should we organize that when we are meeting? Let's say hybrid meeting. So when I'm sitting in Manchester, I bring in as many people as possible in Manchester. So it would be probably 12 to 3 o'clock. But we would be able to network and engage and do that. So if Dr. Anila is sitting in Rawalpindi and Dr. Umaylala is sitting in Gujarat, can we start to do that? I can talk about Pakistan and the UK. Maybe our colleagues in other countries can think about, like Maya can think about India, is how do we start to do, for Pakistan, it's developing more into a movement. It is coming into routine care. It's growing up. But how can it go further? We are working with Save the Children, large learning through play project going with the Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh, Cox's Bazar. We would learn a lot from them, but they're also coming to Pakistan to look at what they can learn from Pakistan. So looking at how it can be the 360 degrees learning from the UK, from North America, and how do we push it? I can see we are about 50 people even now. 50 people can be a great strength. And look at how do we start to make a fuss of what it could be. I've got 3 more minutes. I've got so many ideas from each of the presentation. I would write to you all. But one thing I want to share with you, and I'm looking towards Naseem now, is a research group application, which is up to £3 million, funded by the National Institute of Health Research in the UK, that we should apply for a parenting research group and reach out to our colleagues. But there's a presentation on climate. Climate is hugely important for across the globe. Displaced families. That has been, there's been a talk on that. And how Andrew mentioned about, the different time zones, how we can work around it. So thank you very, very much for the speakers, the chairs, and the participants. And I look forward to meeting you all next year. Back to you, Andrew and Naseem.
Well, folks, as you can understand, one of the wonderful gifts that Nusrat brings to this group is to think the big picture, to think, well, what is possible? What are the things? Where are we missing something? And that's a wonderful gift he brings, and we're very grateful for that. So I'm just so grateful for you folks all coming together. Naseem, do you have any closing words? Do you want to close out?
Just thank you. Just thank you, everybody. Wonderful, wonderful 2 days. Looking forward to next year.
Very good. Blessings on you all, and we'll hopefully see you again next year.